Hey everyone, it's me Lex. Sorry for the voice, I'm a little bit sick. This is also going to be a little bit of a shorter video because of that, but I hope that's not too much of an issue. Today I'm going to be taking my first impressions on the Operative class for Starfinder 2nd edition. The playtest documents released today. I've been having a lot of fun reading through it, even though, again, I'm a little sick. And Operative is thus far the class that has grabbed my attention the most mechanically, although I will say I think the Solarian and the Witch Warper, as well as the Mystic Envoy, pretty much all of the classes have grabbed me thematically, and they all have some standouts, things that I'm looking forward to getting to experiment with over the course of the playtest and eventually into the full release. As for Operative, though, it is, in my mind, going to essentially be the not exactly fighter equivalent for Pathfinder 2nd edition, but something similar to that. They have a key attribute of dexterity, and they have 8 hit points plus con mod. They only have a few skills, 3, plus the 1 trained skill determined by their subclass or their specialization. They only have expert and reflex saves, but they have expert perception, so they're going to be acting pretty fast in combat, even if they're not avoiding notice. And then they are expert in simple and martial guns, and this accelerated proficiency keeps up with them across all of the levels, at the same extent a fighter or a gunslinger would have. And then they're also only trained in light armor. As for their specific abilities that they have granted to them, all operatives have the aim action, whereas an action, while concentrating, as long as you're wielding a ranged weapon that doesn't have the area trait, you can take careful aim at a single creature you're aware of, and they become your mark. And then until the end of your turn, so same turn, your range strikes against them deal an additional 1d4 precision damage, as long as it's, it doesn't have the area trait. And you get to ignore 1 AC bonus, circumstance bonus from cover. And that's only if they're within your first range increment, and you can only have 1 mark at a time. And then at level 5, 11, and 17th, the number of dice, damage dice increases, so up to 4d4. And then at 11th level and 17th level, the AC bonus that you get to bypass by aiming also increases to 2 and then 4. So by the time you've reached 17th level, you're able to completely ignore greater cover just by aiming at something, which is very interesting. And I find the damage bonus on the action as well very interesting. It seems like it's going to be probably the primary use for an operative's, third action on a turn. They're going to be maybe moving or taking cover, something like that. Aiming as their quote-unquote third action, and then striking. And then each operative has a subclass called a specialization. Each one gives you a skill feat for that skill, and then an exploit that gives you additional effects at 9th level as well. And so the first one is the Ghost, and this is actually one that I find really intriguing. The concept of it is that Ghost is, of course, very stealthy, very stealth-focused subterfuge. You become trained in deception, and you get a deception skill feat. But then your initial benefit is that you can aim at targets that are unaware of you as a free action, and if you successfully strike a target who is unaware of you, or has an attitude of friendly towards you, they become slowed 1 for 1 round, and on a critical success, they're stunned for 1 round. And before I get too far into the particulars of what confuses me about this, I'll go over the enhanced exploit. At level 9, they gain the Ghost Tap action, where for 2 actions, they can make a ranged strike against a creature, then attempt a stealth check to hide. If they're in an urban setting, they can use Deception to hide instead, and they get a bonus if the creature was unaware of you, or have an attitude of friendly toward you. And on a success, if they could see you, you're now hidden instead of observed. If you were hidden or undetected, you retain that condition. I am not really sure what this subclass is trying to do, because everything in Pathfinder, which is what the fundamental rules the playtest is using, advises you as far as, like, you know, surprise rounds and attacking people out of combat, etc. Being known to creatures as well, means that this subclass, despite having a very, very strong benefit here, like if you hit someone, they become slowed if they were unaware of you, it's going to be really hard to get that, because as far as I'm aware, when they say unaware here, they mean unnoticed, which means the creature has no idea whatsoever that you're present. And the only situation that this is going to come up in is going to be if you are avoiding notice as combat breaks out, and your stealth check is high enough to beat their perception DC. If you do that, then they will not know you're there until you take your first action breaking stealth. And I think that they don't mean undetected, which would be very strong. That would be just as long as you're able to, like, sneak and they can't follow you, as long as they don't know where you are, but they still know you're here. I'm pretty sure what they mean is unnoticed. And it just seems very interesting to kind of, to me, front load all of the abilities of this specialization, where Ghost is only going to be gaining that benefit on its first strike in an entire combat. And that's if it rolls high enough. Because even the Ghost Tap ability here, it can only make you hidden or keep you hidden or undetected. But undetected does not mean unnoticed. And because unnoticed is the only situation in which something is unaware of you, it means that even using Ghost Tap at level 9, heading off a combat, you beat the perception DCs, you make your powerful strike, gaining your exploit benefit, and you pass the check to hide, and they remain, or you remain undetected to them, but you can't anymore be unaware, or you are no longer unaware to them. And so it's just very interesting. Those are my thoughts reading over that one. Infiltrator is very interesting. You become training computers and you get a computer skill feat. You gain the sabotage action, which lets you, as an action, manipulating and concentrating, choose a tech creature or item within 15 feet that you can see, and then you make a computers or crafting check against the creature's fortitude DC. And if the target is an item, then it's a thievery check against the item's DC or the reflex DC of the creature possessing the item. If it's being carried, held, or worn, and the DC would be higher. And then if you're an expert in the requisite skill, you can use it up to 30, 45, and then 60 feet, depending on your proficiency. And then it makes whatever you're attempting to sabotage become glitching 1 for 1 minute. And glitching is a new condition. It's basically a debuff for technological items and creatures. And then your enhanced exploit as Infiltrator is that you can use Sabotage as a free action whenever you critically hit a tech creature with a melee attack or ranged attack in your first range increment, targeting the triggering creature. You can use Sabotage as a reaction whenever a creature wielding a tech weapon or a tech creature critically fails a melee attack roll against you, targeting the triggering creature or weapon or creature. So it's a whole lot of basically just sabotage. You get to do a lot of messing with and causing tech items and creatures to glitch, either when you hit them, just as its own action, or when they miss on attempting to attack you. Skirmisher, this is actually one of my favorite operative specializations. You become trained in acrobatics and you get an acrobatic skill feat. But then your ranged strikes with one-handed ranged weapons don't trigger reactions that are triggered by a ranged attack. And you gain the hair trigger feat as a bonus feat, and I'll bring that over here. It's reactive strike, but for any gun you're wielding. And it even gets to interrupt on a manipulate action, and it's within your first range increment. It's very strong. It's a level 2 feat that operative gets. Any operative can have it, but a skirmisher gets it at first level. And that combined with just purely the ability to not trigger reactions with one-handed ranged attacks, I think already is going to be enough to make skirmisher an incredibly potent dual-wielding pistol class, especially because reloading in Starfinder is so much easier. You don't need to reload in between every shot. And then at level 9, Skirmisher gets enhanced point-blank shots whenever you make a successful strike against an adjacent enemy with a one-handed ranged weapon. So again, just pistols, basically. You calculate the damage as if the lowest rolled weapon damage die had the maximum result instead. So basically it makes, if you are rolling d6s, we'll say, it makes your ones, or at least one of them, into a 6. And then at 17th level, you get to do that for the 2 lowest rolled damage dice instead. I think that's really cool. It means that the average damage of these low dice weapons is still going to be relatively high. I think Skirmisher looks like it's going to be a ton of fun, especially in conjunction with some of the other operative class features that we'll get into as we go down. Sniper is very, very simple. You get stealth and a stealth skill feat. You get to completely ignore the volley trait on guns you wield, which is important because the sniper rifles have volley. And then you get to gain one of the following operative feats as a bonus feat. Keep them in your sights, or scope sight, and I have both of these here as well. Keep them in your sights makes it so that your aim benefits apply into your second range increment instead of only your first. And scope sight makes it so that whenever you aim, you can also interact to activate a sight weapon upgrade. Weapon upgrades are essentially the potency runes of Starfinder 2nd Edition. Or property runes of Starfinder 2nd Edition. They have unique abilities. And the sights currently are a little underwhelming. There's a sniper's sight that lets you increase your range increment even further, which when you already have a 100-foot range increment, and the other option, the keep them in your sights, is allowing your aim to go into your second range increment. It's maybe not the most appealing, but that'll obviously depend on the circumstances you find yourselves in. Starfinder is going to be set in much larger maps with more cover and such. And the other sight that we currently have access to is a ghost sight. It lets you see invisible things when you aim through it. Either of those is going to be kind of interesting, but I think the biggest thing is the getting to ignore volley trait, the volley trait on guns you wield. And then enhanced exploit at 9th level. If you fail your first ranged strike against your mark using a sniper rifle, that strike doesn't count towards your multiple attack penalty, and you ignore your sniper rifle's unwieldy trait until the end of your turn. So the unwieldy trait means that you can only attack with the weapon once per turn, and then additionally, you cannot make strikes with unwieldy weapons as part of reactions. So the feat that we just covered, hair trigger, that allowed you to, as a reaction, shoot something, you could not do this with a sniper rifle because it has the unwieldy trait. Interesting to me for the enhanced exploit here is that this doesn't work action economy wise if you're trying to maintain your aim for the damage bonus or the cover push through. And I believe there are feats to get around this, but the sniper rifles that we currently have are all a single bullet in the chamber and then they need to be reloaded. And so in which case you would need to, on a prior turn, mark someone using aim, and then even though you lose the benefits of them being your mark, they remain your mark, as far as I understand the rules, which then means that on your next turn, you could shoot, and if you missed, you could reload and then shoot again, without incrementing your multiple attack penalty, which is going to do a lot for consistency. And it kind of introduces this interesting, like, do you spend your action investing in a few extra die of precision damage and being able to bypass cover with aim? Or do you hold off and utilize your enhanced exploit to be able to shoot twice if your first attack misses? Being able to bypass multiple attack penalty is amazing, even if it only triggers on a miss. And then Striker, this is the one melee-based subclass of Operative. You become trained in athletics, and you get a skill feat for athletics, and you can have strength as your key attribute. And then it basically switches your... it basically gives you the same level of expertise as you would have with guns as, say, a gunslinger or the Operative, with unarmed and one-handed melee weapons with the Agile trait. And that replaces your martial guns. And then whenever you increase your proficiency with martial guns, or I guess whenever you would increase it, you instead increase your proficiency with one-handed agile melee weapons and simple guns. And left untyped there, but I assume implied, as this is a playtest, is unarmed attacks as well. So essentially you get expertise with agile weapons and unarmed attacks, and you still get to keep expertise with simple guns, which means you can still be wielding simple pistols and such. In addition, when you aim, you can aim with and apply the benefits to a one-handed melee weapon with the Agile trait. Any operative feat that has a requirement of you wielding a gun also allows you to satisfy that requirement by wielding a one-handed melee weapon with the Agile trait. Anything that says you can make a ranged strike instead allows you to make a melee strike with a one-handed agile melee weapon. And you get reactive step, where if a creature within your reach leaves a square during a move action it's using, you can step twice as a reaction, ending as close as possible to them. And then at level 9, you gain Overwhelming Strike, and this is kind of just the rogue's debilitations. When you hit a creature you've designated as your mark and deal damage, then as a free action, you can overwhelm them to either make them off guard, suppressed, or make it so that they cannot take cover or benefit from cover until the end of your next turn. A lot of interesting stuff for the striker there, getting in close. I'm definitely going to try to experiment with operatives both in the melee and ranged categories, but I think that there is a very clear push here, and something that I'm very excited for, because I was a little worried about the viability of ranged weapons in the Pathfinder 2nd Edition core engine. But that has been much assuaged by my read-through of this playtest rulebook thus far. I'm looking forward. I'm going to be running some games in the next few days here. Another interesting thing all operatives get at first level is whenever you interact to reload a ranged weapon, you can also step or stride. So there's going to be a lot of movement, because this isn't its own action. This is just whenever you reload. So if you reload a weapon as part of another action that you have, you can step or stride there as well. This is going to keep you very, very mobile, and it has me very interested in, say, a striker wielding a pistol and a one-handed agile weapon. You will, of course, get your Operative Feats, but then I'm going to skim through the granted features because there are some interesting ones here. Specifically, on the move, at 3rd level, you gain a 5-foot status bonus to speed, and it increases every 5 levels beyond 3rd. It also gives you the tactical advance action, where as long as you're not encumbered as a flourish, you can stride half your speed without triggering reactions. And this is actually going to get buffed as you level up, and I'll cover that as we get there. At 3rd level, you also get specialized skill set. At 3rd, 7th, and 15th level, you gain a skill feat for the trained skill from your operative specialization. I'm guessing that in the final game, this is probably going to come with free skill increases, the same as the swashbuckler. But as is, it's currently just additional skill feats. At 5th level, you get to completely ignore difficult terrain from trash and crowds, and as normal, that also decreases greater difficult terrain to just standard difficult terrain of that kind. Your Operative's Edge at level 7 gives you a +2 circ bonus to initiative rolls, and that stacks with Incredible Initiative up to +3. At level 11, your tactical advance, that flourish move that you have, lets you move up to your speed. At level 15, whenever you hit your mark, you get to apply your weapon's crit spec, even if it was only a hit and not a crit, which is very, very interesting. Tactical Barrage at level 17. This is just Agile Grace. Your multiple attack penalty against your mark is -3, -6, or -2, -4 with Agile weapons. This is like full-on Flurry Ranger, almost, I believe. And then also at level 19, when you use your tactical advance, that flourish move, you can stride up to double your speed. So once around, you're moving twice your speed with those speed bonuses, without triggering reactions. It's a very mobile class. And then we'll go through the feats here. There's a very long list. You can see it on the side here. I'm going to kind of skim them because I don't want to get too in-depth, and I definitely don't want to ruin my throat while I'm still recovering. Before we get into it, I'm going to take a sip of water, so do not mind me. Alrighty. First up, Creative Cover. As an action, you can create a temporary barrier for yourself, giving you lesser cover. And then at the end of your next turn, that barrier breaks down, becoming ineffective. It has an AC of 10 and is immediately destroyed if it takes any damage. And then this stacks with a general feat, a 1st level general feat, I believe, called Barricade, that just improves the barricade that you're creating to give you standard cover. It still breaks down, but it has hardness equal to half your level and hit points equal to twice your level. I have yet to see how shooting cover to try and destroy it is going to play out. But regardless, I think this is pretty decent, just being able to toss something together, even if you're nowhere near cover, and especially being able to combine it with a general feat to make it even more potent. Very, very solid. Elusive Target. As a reaction, when an attack roll for a strike targeting you fails or crit fails, you get to step. Nice enough. Instinctive Aim. As an action, you draw your gun and then aim with it. I can't say that this is going to be the most useful thing, but it will definitely aid you if you end up getting surprised with your gun sheathed. Keep them in your sights. This is the second range increment aim benefit thing that Sniper has the option to take. Mobile aim, which lets you stride and then aim as a single action. Very decent. Scope sight, which is the other Sniper thing, allowing you to activate sight upgrades whenever you aim. And then weakening shot, which I think is, for most people, probably going to be the go-to. It's a 2-action activity when you're wielding a gun. You aim and then make a ranged strike at your mark. If the strike hits, the creature becomes your choice of Clumsy 1 or Enfeebled 1 until the end of your next turn. And then if that's a critical hit, that's Clumsy or Enfeebled 2. There's no kind of limitation to how often you can use this, and because Clumsy affects armor class with a status penalty, I get the impression that this is going to be what a lot of people attempt to utilize as frequently as possible, purely for the ability to make something clumsy too. It's very, very strong. Next up, at 2nd level, we have Danger Awareness. This is basically Trap Finder. And if your initiative result is tied with an opponent, you go first. And then Defensive Gunner. Guns you wield gain the parry trait. If they already have it, then increase the AC bonus from 1 to 2. Double Tap as a 2-action activity. You can aim and then make 2 strikes against your mark. So this is a lot better if you're wielding, say, 2 guns or a gun with some capacity, rather than a sniper rifle, which will not be able to take advantage of this. Apply multiple attack penalty normally, but if both attacks hit, you combine their damage. And I really like how they are using this language in the playtest here. Rather than like combine it for the purposes of weaknesses and resistances, they're just combining the damage outright. Precision damage is added only once, and then, of course, because the damage is combined, resistances and weaknesses are also only applied once. Hair Trigger, so at 2nd level, any operative can take the reactive strike within your first range increment. This is going to be an amazing choice, I think, for many, many operatives. Sniper will not be able to utilize it because the unwieldy trait, again, prevents you from making strikes as part of reactions with those weapons. But for, say, even a skirmisher with a pistol in the offhand or something, just being able to shoot things for basically taking any kind of movement that isn't able to bypass reactions, or shooting their own guns, etc. Very, very potent. You're going to get a lot of free damage off of this. Kill Steal as a reaction when an ally ends their turn. If you're wielding a gun and an enemy was hit 2 or more times by the triggering ally this turn, then you get to aim at the required creature and then make a strike against it. I think this is a lot of fun. Very thematic. But it is going to be kind of hard to fulfill these requirements. Not the hardest thing ever, but it's not going to happen every time. Peek allows you to make a range strike and then take cover as a single action. And Swift Reposition makes it so that you get a circumstance bonus to a reflex save before you roll it using a reaction, and then allows you to leap or step after the effect has resolved. Moving up to 4th level, Operative has Always Ready. If you're about to roll initiative as a free action, you can draw a weapon, and at the beginning of your first turn, you can aim at a target as a free action. This is actually some very, very solid action compression. I have my issues with, for example, instinctive aim, drawing a gun and then aiming with it. This is essentially that, but as a free action triggered on initiative, because you're not going to be interacting to draw a gun very often. at least as far as I'm aware. And so instinctive aim is kind of going to be a one and done as a single action usually, and then from then on you'll just be using the aim action. Whereas always ready is going to do the same thing for you, but as a free action. That being said, I could definitely see maybe with instinctive aim, someone carries multiple guns and they keep dropping them to keep using instinctive aim. But at that point, it's kind of here or there, whether it's even that useful. You get to bypass reloading, I suppose, but whenever you would reload, you get to move anyway. So it seems a little superfluous to me to have instinctive aim, and always ready does what it does, in my eyes. That's just my initial impressions. I'll see how it plays out in the game. Bloody wounds. Whenever you critically hit your mark, you do persistent bleed equal to the number of aim damage dice. Devastating aim, which increases those d4s to d6s on your aim damage bonus. Double draw, as I believe it is not supposed to have an action cost here. My understanding here, it has the requirements of you have 2 free hands, and it has a free action, but it says here, when you interact to draw a one-handed weapon, you draw another one-handed weapon as a free action. And I believe that's the intended functionality of this feat. It's just meant to be that you can draw two one-handed weapons at once whenever you draw one of them. Hampering shot. Whenever you're wielding a gun as 2 actions, you can aim and then make a ranged strike. If the strike hits, the creature becomes off guard until the end of your next turn. Pretty decent. My biggest issue with this is that weakening shot does the same thing but with clumsy instead of off guard. And with the 2 being circumstance and status bonuses, but off guard, at least as far as Pathfinder is concerned, and like a very, very brief overlook of how Starfinder works, Starfinder as well, being able to cause a creature to become off guard, you know, things like create a diversion. Weakening shot is just going to be more useful a lot of the time because clumsy will stack. But this can definitely have its own uses if you're unable to apply off guard in another way. So I'm not going to knock it till I try it. Next up is stop them in their tracks. As an action, as long as you have aimed at a target, you can demoralize your mark, and you get to ignore circumstance penalty for not sharing a language. And on a critical success, they also become immobilized for a round. This is really fun. I think that this is great. The requirements are kind of odd to me because you've aimed at a target, but then the action makes you demoralize your mark. It's confusing to me because I'm not sure if you're supposed to have to use this the same turn that you aim, or if you can use it on a following turn. Well, they're still your mark, but you're not gaining any bonuses. And then switch target, where as a free action, when the creature you are currently aimed at gains the dying or unconscious condition, you get to aim at a different creature. Alrighty. At 6th level, we have deflecting fire. If you're the target of a ranged attack, you're aware of it, not off guard against it, and wielding a gun. You can expend an amount of ammo from the gun equal to its usage, so just shooting it more or less. And you gain a +4 circumstance bonus to AC against the triggering attack. If it misses, you've deflected it, and you can't deflect unusually massive projectiles like missiles. So very, very solid. You expend some ammo, and you gain double the circumstance bonus to AC of a shield. Destructive dash as 2 actions. If you're in an environment with suitable material to tear up, you can stride up to your speed, and the squares you pass through become difficult terrain as you tear up your surroundings and topple nearby objects. And then a creature within reach of one of the affected squares can clean it with an interact action to remove that. Disarming shot. With 2 actions, you can strike your mark, and if your strike hits, select a weapon your target is wielding or an item they're holding, and they take a -2 circumstance penalty to attacks with the item or other checks requiring a firm grasp on the item, as long as they hold it or until they interact to change their grip on it. On a critical success with the strike, you knock the weapon out of their grasp. So it's disarm, but as part of a strike. And you have the accelerated proficiency for being an operative. Very, very good. I think that this might, in some circumstances, even be very, very strong. The biggest issue is going to be you'll want someone to be able to close the distance and say, pick up the weapon that you've disarmed before the enemy can gain access to it again. Kick it into overdrive as a free action once an hour when your turn begins. You become quickened until the end of your turn and can use it only to stride. You can also choose to become quickened until the end of your next turn, but then at the end of the duration you become fatigued for 2 rounds. So, very interesting. You can get a lot of extra actions to close the gap at very early levels. There's a lot of mobility-based stuff in Starfinder, and it's making me kind of conceptualize. It's building this idea in my mind of what battle maps and encounters are going to look like. It's very exciting. Skirmish Strike. As an action, you either step and then strike or strike and then step. I believe this is already a thing in Pathfinder, though with how tired I currently am, I could not tell you where it's from. Tactical Swap. Once a round as an action, if your last range strike this turn missed or hit and failed to damage the target, you can interact to swap your weapon for a different one and then strike the enemy with the new weapon and ignore the multiple attack penalty of the prior strike. So very good. If you end up, say, I believe the laser weapons still do fire damage. If you were to shoot something and it was immune to fire, you could then switch to a backup ballistic weapon and strike and not suffer any multiple attack penalty. It's very interesting to me how switching to ranged weapons with their generally weaker damage values is kind of allowing them to play more with the multiple attack penalty and kind of open up the ability to make more strikes ignoring that penalty, because reactive strike in Pathfinder is so strong because you can get such immense damage on your melee hits. And then unhindered advance. When you use tactical advance, so this is that granted feature you have, the one action move half your speed without triggering reactions, and it increases to full speed and double. You get to ignore difficult terrain and greater difficult terrain, which is very good. You can potentially be moving like probably up to 100 feet. I would, off the top of my head, by the end game, not triggering reactions and ignoring all forms of difficult terrain. Very, very fun. At 8th level, we have Opening Volley. As an action, you make a ranged strike, and if that strike is successful, your next melee attack against the same target this round gains a +2 circ bonus. Makes sense. Parkour, where once per round as an action, you get to stride up to your speed. During this movement, you can leap over obstacles and gaps, can run up vertical surfaces, like walls, at your full speed. And if you end the stride off the ground, you fall after taking your next action, or when your turn ends, whichever comes first, though you can still grab an edge if applicable. This is a lot of fun. Just getting to run across and up walls and leap over obstacles and gaps. And with the way it's worded, I imagine, and I'm actually going to get a quick drawing here, I imagine that if there was a situation where, say, there was this second floor up here with an enemy firing down. Oh man, look at my amazing art. And you were down here. I believe with the way this is worded, you could go for a stride like this and then leap here and grab an edge to pull yourself up onto the ledge with the opponent, which would be a lot of fun. This just kind of opens up the environment to you, and that's something I've noticed a lot with some of the Starfinder options as well, is they're really opening up mobility. For example, one of the ancestries, the Patra, they're kind of cat people. They have a first level feat that allows them to gain a just full-on climb speed. I really like the focus on mobility that they're doing in the playtest here. Next up is Toppling Shot with 2 actions. You aim, then make a range strike at your mark. If it hits, the target is knocked back 5 feet. And if this forced movement would cause them to collide with a creature or object, both of them take bludgeoning damage equal to your aim damage. On a critical hit, they're also knocked prone. So what you're really going to want here is the knocked prone, but being able to push people a little bit and potentially do extra damage if you knock them into things is not bad at all. Operative has a lot of these where it's 2 action, strike your mark, and then get an additional effect. Me personally, I'm wondering if maybe this could be better folded into some kind of different architecture for the class, where like maybe all operatives get a 2 action ability, and then these feats would instead modify the bonus or just add on to it. But as is, it's still very interesting being able to gain all of these options as feats. Twin Shooter, with a prerequisite of double draw, the one that allow you to draw 2 weapons at once. As long as you're wielding 2 simple guns, they gain the Agile trait. Very solid. Uncanny Deflection, and this has the prerequisites of deflecting fire, which was the one that allowed you to shoot something to attempt to increase your AC. When you succeed with deflecting fire, as part of that reaction, you can immediately make a ranged gun strike with the same gun you used for deflecting fire, not using ammunition, because it uses the same ammo you used for deflecting fire. So this is very, very solid. If you're the target of a ranged attack that you're aware of and you're not off guard against it and you're wielding a gun, you shoot your gun, gain a +4 circumstance bonus to AC against the triggering attack, and then if the attack misses, that bullet that you've expended can go on to hit them with this feat. Very, very solid. Very fun. Impeding Shot. 2 actions. You aim, then strike at your mark. If you hit, they're slowed 1 until the end of their next turn. And if they're flying, they also fall 10 feet. Which could, depending on the circumstance, potentially cause someone to hit the ground, take some falling damage, go prone. Very solid. Muzzle Flash. Aim, strike your mark. If you hit, the creature becomes dazzled until the end of your next turn, as long as they're within your first range increment. And I would take that to mean you have to strike a creature within your first range increment with this ability. Opportune Retort. As a reaction, when a creature critically fails a melee attack roll against you, then you can make a ranged strike against the triggering creature. It's solid enough. I think by this level you have enough ways to deal with this circumstance that you probably wouldn't want this, because you could, for example, as long as you're not a sniper, have hair trigger to shoot them as they approach you using your reaction, and then you could use your granted tactical maneuver to move away without provoking their reactions. But it's not bad. I won't say that. I just think that it's probably generally going to be outclassed by the other abilities you already have access to. Practiced escape. When a creature grabs, immobilizes, or restrains you, as a reaction, you can attempt to escape. And if you succeed or critically succeed, you can also stand or step. So very solid. If something tries to hold on to you, you immediately get to try to escape, and if you do, you can move away. Or at least stand up. Sprint 2 or 3 actions allows you to stride up to 4 times, and if you spend the 3 actions, you stride up to 6 times. This is a lot of movement, especially with the operative's natural speed bonuses, and the ability to increase that further with, I'm going to assume, equipment and augmentations and such. You can close the gap fast, striding 6 times for 3 actions. Urbanite allows you to move at full speed in crowds and use cover from crowds to hide and sneak, getting bonuses depending on the size of the crowd. Dual aim. And now we're getting into the 12th level feats. You can have 2 marks at a time instead of 1, and when you aim, you can select 2 marks rather than 1. So here, you get to kind of maintain more targets at once, and it cools down on the action economy a little bit. You'll still only be getting your aim bonuses on the turn that you use aim, but you won't have to be re-upping your mark every turn to be able to utilize some of these abilities. Grazing shot. As a single action, when you have a mark, make a ranged strike against your mark, and even if you fail the attack, it'll deal minimum damage to the target. So as if every die you would roll has a result of 1. That's neat enough. That's a good way to get some guaranteed damage in. And particularly in a situation where maybe you have a rifle and you're at middle range and you just want to shoot twice and then use your 3rd strike on a grazing shot. Although at that point you might critically fail and still not gain that damage, but decent enough. Line them up. Make a strike against a target within your first range increment as 2 action activity. Apply that attack against all creatures in a straight line between you and your target, ignoring any lesser cover that the creatures would provide one another. Roll damage only once and apply it to each creature you hit, and it counts as 2 attacks for your multiple attack penalty. That's very cool. I like that. So you get to, it's essentially sweep, but for however many creatures you can line up between you and a target within your first range increment. That's a lot of fun. That could output a ton of damage, potentially. Overwhelming shot. As 2 actions, aim, then strike your mark. And you get to select a damage type: acid, bludgeoning, cold, electricity, fire, mental, piercing, poison, slashing, or sonic. And your shot ignores an amount of the target's resistance to the selected type equal to your level. If they have a weakness to the selected type, increase that weakness by an amount equal to half your level, and immunities are unaffected. That's very neat. Being able to kind of intensify an immunity or bypass a resistance. Running shot. As a 2 action ability, aim and then stride up to your speed, and at any point during this movement you can make a strike with a gun you're wielding. Very decent. At 14th level we have probably my favorite feat name-wise, although the mechanics are not the most engaging to me. 360 no scope. The prerequisites are parkour, which is the one that allowed you to stride up walls and leap off of them. As a 2 action activity, you parkour and then aim, and then you can make a ranged strike with the gun you're wielding during the movement, including when you are falling. Very solid. I think it might not get a lot of use because I can't picture many scenarios where a parkour could get you to a spot where you could shoot someone, but not to a spot where you would be able to stand and then shoot them. which is the circumstance that this would be useful for. But it does still have action compression in that you get your parkour action, you get to aim, and then you get to make a strike. So it's not bad. Bullet Fever, as a reaction, when you take damage that reduce you to 0 hit points once per hour, instead of being knocked out, you're reduced to 1 hit point, gain a number of temporary hit points equal to your level plus your key attribute modifier for a minute, increase your wounded value by 1, and enter a frenzy. And you can't voluntarily end your frenzy. While you're in a frenzy caused by Bullet Fever, you automatically apply precision damage to all targets as though you were aiming. So that's very solid. It's a bunch of free damage. You take a -2 circumstance penalty to AC, so it's basically you're off guard to everyone. You take a -2 circumstance penalty to will saves, which is fair enough. And you can't take actions that don't have the attack or move traits except to reload your weapons. And then that lasts for a minute, and at the end of that, you lose your temporary hit points. I think that's a lot of fun. You get a bunch of extra damage, you get to stay up if you would die, but you're off guard and you're easier to incapacitate with will saves. Clustered Shots, as a 2-action activity. As long as your gun has at least 3 expend worth of ammunition, aim, then make a ranged strike at your mark and subtract 3 times your weapon's expend from its magazine. Roll the attack twice and use the better result, ignoring circumstance penalties to the attack roll and any flat check required to the target being concealed or hidden. Neat. I like that. So you get to spend 3 ammo to roll twice and keep the better. And you, because you're shooting so many bullets out, you get to ignore concealed and hidden. Just from like sheer volume of shots. Fish in a barrel. Aim, strike a prone or immobilized creature not benefiting from cover as a 2-action activity. Treating a success as a critical success. If you roll a critical success, the target is off guard and suppressed until the beginning of your next turn. Wow. That's quite strong. Yeah, strike a prone or immobilized creature not benefiting from cover. And if you hit, you critically hit. And if you critically hit, then they're also off guard and suppressed until the beginning of your next turn. This could output some immense damage on a sniper with the right support from your team, I think. Very solid. Follow-up fire. When you're wielding 2 guns and your last action was a ranged strike that missed as a free action once per round, you can make a second ranged strike using the weapon you're wielding that you didn't fire with. And that doesn't count the multiple attack penalty from the prior attack, but does count towards future multiple attack penalties. Very solid. So it essentially is a free action ability to, if you miss, shoot again without suffering map, but still incrementing it. Burst fire. This requires double tap. If you make your second strike from double tap with the same gun, double tap counts as 1 attack when calculating your multiple attack penalty, and you apply your precision damage from aim to both strikes. And just as a reminder to you and to myself, double tap was the ability that I think I scrolled past. Oh no, it's all the way up here. Aim and then make 2 strikes against your mark, applying map normally. Okay, so yes, it allows you to, as a 2-action ability, aim and then strike twice, and if it's striking twice from the same weapon, then it only counts as a single attack for a multiple attack penalty, and you apply your precision damage bonus to both strikes. Your second attack, I believe, is still going to suffer multiple attack penalty, but it's just that it won't increment it to -10. Very solid. Cloaking Field, once an hour, is a 2-action activity. You become invisible for 10 minutes. And it ends when you use a hostile action. And your Cloaking Field bypasses security cameras, sentries, and other surveillance unless they possess special senses that see through invisibility. Explosive Deflection. This allows you to trigger deflecting fire when you would be in the area of a grenade detonation. You determine if you would succeed at your save before anyone else in the area, and if you do succeed using deflecting fire, you trigger the grenade midair, causing it to explode before it reaches you. Select the space of your choice directly between you and the attacker, and the grenade explodes in the selected space, and you don't need to save again if you're in the new space. That's really cool. So if someone throws a grenade, you can, as a reaction, gain a bonus, I assume, to your save. It doesn't actually specify here, because grenades are saves against a set DC. Reflex saves, that is. So I assume it would give you the bonus to your reflex save. And then if you succeed on that save, or on the deflection, you get to just shoot the grenade wherever you want and stop it from reaching you or your party. Very fun. Extreme Accuracy, with the prerequisite of keep them in your sights, which was the one that let you extend your aim benefits up to your second range increment. When you aim, the benefits apply if your mark is within up to your fourth range increment, and you get to ignore the penalty for attacking your mark at up to 4 range increments away. That's an extreme range increment, I gotta say. Instant Reload. Once a round, you can reload as a free action. And notably, because it is the reload action still, your ability that allows you to step or stride whenever you reload, this would also allow you to move like that. Kill Shot, as a 2 or 3 action activity. Aim, then strike your mark. If the attack is a success, you deal maximum damage. On a critical success, you roll the result normally, but if the double damage would be less than the maximum of a normal success, you use the maximum of the success instead. And if you spent 3 actions and your attack was a critical success, then you deal maximum damage and double it. That's immense. That's, I've sat around for long periods of time looking at damage dice and potential damage of snipers in Pathfinder and being like, wow, it would never happen that someone would roll this high, but it would do so much damage, and this just lets you do it at 18th level, of course. But rolling 3 spending 3 actions and then rolling a critical hit and doing maximum damage possible, this is immense. That could absolutely just outright kill something. Relentless Aim. When you aim at targets within your first range increment, you ignore up to greater cover that they would otherwise have against your attacks. Oh, okay. So it's that even if you haven't aimed at them this turn, you get to maintain that ability to bypass up to 4 AC bonus from cover. I see. So that's kind of extending it into a passive against your marks. Tactical Assault, as a 3 action activity. Stride up to twice, then make up to 3 ranged strikes during the movement. Each ranged strike must target a different creature within your first range increment. And each attack counts towards your multiple attack penalty, but it doesn't increase until the activity is over. Very solid. And then finally, at 20th level, Combat Reflexes gives you an additional reaction at the start of each enemy's turn that you can use for operative reactions. So that would be very good for shooting someone for moving. And Infinite Aim, where aim is a free action. They also have little sidebars at the end of each of these, detailing how they want you to play test or things to keep in mind, and I'm going to read through that a little bit too. Playtesting the Operative. They see the Operative as a dedicated damage dealer with a potent set of skills, meant to be simple to pick up, but offer ways to customize your character as you level. They decided to focus on the Operative's role as a damage dealer so that the Envoy could shine a bit more in the troubleshooter role, but Operatives can still do more than just shoot. Your specialization will assist you in determining a unique play style, giving you specific skills. No matter which flavor you choose, all operatives get extra damage from aim. It's kind of like sneak attack. That's a decent comparison, I would say. Aim might represent something different depending on your specialization. That's some nice flavor. Guns are an operative's best friends. Remember, Starfinder has a ranged meta, meaning everyone is packing gun or some other ranged weapons. A lot of combats happen at a distance using cover and tactical positioning. Snipers shooting from long range or while hidden is a playstyle built into the Operative. You might need a big map to put the sniper through its paces. Close combat enjoyers should try out the Striker specialization. Don't forget to pack a sidearm, though, for when you're all six isn't enough. Skirmisher is another up-close option for operatives, but it uses pistols. And the biggest question is playing the Operative fun? This class should be simple to play, but not too simplistic. You should feel like a powerful damage dealer with options besides following the same rotation of actions. Go headshot the big bad, then parkour off a building like a space badass. Wait, can I say that? Alright. Yeah. Overall, my thoughts on the Operative, having read over it in my own time and now for this video. I think it seems like a lot of fun. You're definitely going to be able to take advantage of a lot of mobility and just general potency. Being an accelerated proficiency class with your weapons, the different specializations that you can take, even though I think some of them have some issues, or at least things that I would be concerned about in being able to define playstyles, like for example sabotage with an infiltrator. I'm not sure how prevalent tech creatures or tech items are going to be, as there are plenty of analog equipment options available to you. Or things like Ghost, where I'm not even sure how it's supposed to function at all. If it's meant to just be like a bonus at the beginning of combat sometimes, and then nothing else beyond that. But then, like, moving on into Skirmisher and Sniper and Striker, these are all some immensely well-defined roles that an operative can take on. The feats add a lot to them, and I think Operative is going to be a ton of fun to run around. I also wanted to, real quick, bring everyone over to the weapons bar for... Here we go. Ranged weapons. Just so that everyone can have a little bit more context as to the options available here. Simple ranged weapons include things like, say, the auto-target rifle. It's a D6, 10 projectile magazine weapon analog. Or, for example, the laser pistol. It does a D6 of fire damage. And it's a tac weapon with 10 ammo, but every shot expends 2. So it really has 5 shots in it. And then moving down into the martial ranged weapons, we have the assassin rifle and the Sheeran eye rifle. These are the 2 snipers, martial snipers, that an operative would likely be using. These are alongside the injection rifle, I suppose, the only martial ranged weapons that actually have the fatal trait, which is very interesting to see that they're limiting that potency level of doing immense amounts of damage on a critical hit to specifically snipers, it makes sense. But it's just very odd to come from Pathfinder, where basically like almost all of the ranged, almost all of the guns have fatal in some form, and it allows their critical hits to do massive damage, and that not being the case in Starfinder 2nd Edition is very interesting, and I'm looking forward to seeing how that plays out. Also very interesting to me is that rather than having runes, they're implementing things as improvements. So you take any weapon listed here is commercial grade, and then for 350 credits you can upgrade it to a tactical weapon, which gives it the additional tracking bonus, or the attack potency, a +1 to your attack rolls. And then at 4th level you can pay another 650 credits, or a total of 1,000, to upgrade it to an advanced weapon, and that gets you your striking and an upgrade slot, which is your upgrade slots are now in tandem with your striking runes rather than your potency runes, essentially. But yeah, those are my overall thoughts. Initial first impressions on Operative and on the Starfinder 2e playtest. I'm looking forward to getting to read more of this. Not being sick, hopefully, in the coming week. I'm looking forward to running some games so I can give some more in-depth understanding and knowledge and learn a little bit more myself as well. I hope everyone else is having a great time reading through all of the new content. I think for sure my definite favorite piece of art in the book is the Patra art that they have here. Look at that cat. It reminds me of the Puss in Boots movie, The Last Wish, the new one that, I guess it's not new anymore, but it came out relatively recently. It's very, very good. I recommend you watch it. But I'm getting sidetracked. I hope everyone is enjoying the playtest, and I look forward to learning more from the book and from all of you, and being able to inform everyone a little bit more as well. Take care, and I will see you next time. See ya. See ya.